Thank
Thank
you so much.
you. Well, greetings again, my scholar. Good to have you back with us.
Thank you so much. I'm good. I'm grateful to be back. So thank you for having me.
Yes. Good. So, can you introduce and tell us the name of your book?
Awesome. Well, hi, my name is Shanaya Daughtrey. Excuse me for the background noise. I don't know if it's loud, but hi, my name is Shanaya Daughtrey. I'm a sophomore at the University of Alabama, and the title of my book is Generation Z, The Sleeping Giant Awakens. We have the power.
Wonderful. So, let's just let everyone know that you are right now in school on campus. And
Yes.
so, she is speaking to us from school, from her residence. So, don't worry about the background noise. We understand. Can't control that. That's
Yeah.
okay. My gardener just showed up. I was like, oh no.
I
You
know
got
the timing is just always just
yeah.
right when you need to have complete silence is something always gonna pop
Right.
up, but it's
Exactly.
okay. We're gonna make it through. We're gonna make it through.
Wonderful. So tell us what is to write your first book.
Well, first and foremost, I want to give honor and glory to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ because without Him, nothing is possible. And I'm grateful to just be guided by Him, be guided by and protected and kept in His hedge of protection. Um, Secondly, I want to say to everybody who's listening, young, old, middle age, it doesn't matter, that when you want to do something, you have a passion for it, and you work hard toward that goal, anything is possible. Anything is achievable. Anything is attainable. So I really just want to start off by saying that. Now, with that being said, ultimately, I was inspired by the student activism that was displayed by the student survivors from the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School shooting in Parkland, Florida, and even from them, from that time, we've seen so much change. We've seen an entire generation of young people who look like me, who come from the same socioeconomic standpoint as me, who probably came from the same neighborhood as me, and seeing children, teenagers who look like me, who shared that same fire, that same charisma, who wanted to actively engage, who wanted to get involved, who wanted their voices to be heard. I wanted to be a part of that collective. I wanted to be a part of that collective of voices who wanted to actively inculcate change, who actively wanted to participate in our politics, in our social justice issues. So witnessing that as a junior in high school and participating in national school walkouts that occurred across the country, and it all started from Parkland, Florida, in Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. That was transcendent to me. And so ultimately, they inspire me. Their work, their activism, their courage in the face of adversity ultimately inspired me to put pen to paper. And I'm forever grateful for their work because I'm building off their work. I'm building off of their legacy that they laid for their children. If you want to go that far, that's a foundation that's forever going to be ingrained in our history, in our textbooks, over social media. We're never going to forget that. It's an honor to even want to be a part of that collective. And so this book is kind of my legacy. And so I thought about that. I thought about every word, every page that I wrote. That's what I was thinking about. A generation after me, the Alpha generation, which is after Generation Z. That's what I was thinking about. People, the children who were coming after me. So I'm forever grateful for their work that they did. And that's ultimately what inspired me.
Great, great. So why don't you tell us about who Shanaya Daughtrey is? Give us a little bit about who you.
Shanaya Daughtrey is a complicated person. I'm joking. No. On a serious note, I love getting things done. You sleep better when you know you had a long day at work and you had a long day at school and you just had a checklist of things to do, but you've accomplished every single one. You used every hour on the minute to get things done, whether you stopped for a little coffee break, you went to the bathroom, you were still able to get those done. So for me personally, the type of person I am, who Shanaya Daughtry is, I am tenacious in in my efforts in trying to accomplish goals that I set forth. I'm steadfast in my efforts in trying to accomplish the goals that I set forth. You can call that goal driven, but I love getting things done, and it's even better when you manifested something and you see it come out, you see it come to fruition. And so, tenacious, resilient. I've gone through a lot of ups and downs a little bit, but nothing compared to some people who have it worse than me. So I never forget the blessings that God has given me. But I've had my moments of just when I was down, despondent, disconnected. And I would describe myself as resilient because through it all, I'm still here. I'm still actively working, and I'm still just maintaining, and I'm able to, share those experiences, those moments of despondency with other people. And we're able to bounce that energy off of each other because now we're still in the present, we're still living. And even though I'm a realist, I try to look on the bright side of things. I try to be positive. I love having a good time. So that plays into everything that I do. Like, I never want to do something that I know that I'm not going to enjoy, because then there's no passion behind it. So I'm really passionate. You can hear people say, I can hear by the way you talk, you're so passionate. And I was like, that's a major compliment, because what we're doing right now, I love doing this, because then it's like we're sharing. This is a shared experience. We get to bounce, ideas, knowledge, just occurrences off of each other. And that's ultimately what describes me. I'm a passionate, resilient, tenacious person who loves to have a good time, but also I like to get things done. And when things don't get done, that's when the tables can turn a little bit. And I feel like everybody who's listening can relate to those feelings.
Yes. Yes, awesome. Thank you. So before we get into your book I have right here, why don't you let everyone know who's the force behind all of this passion and inspiration and the drive? Who's the force behind all of that? You've already given all the glory to God.
Right.
So we already know that. But who's that primary person that's been there and who has inspired you?
Well, obviously, obvious, but to me, the obvious answer is my mother, Patricia Daughtrey. She is literally one of the smartest people I know. I can go on a tangent. I can literally write a whole book about my mother and what she's done and what she's been able to. But she is so smart and capable and just willing. And she always looks at what can be done and what cannot be done. She doesn't focus on the can't. She doesn't, I can't do this. She said, okay, what can you do then? So even when I didn't feel like writing a page or a sentence that day, or when I didn't even feel like watching a documentary or reading an article or reading a mini biography on, for example, Sir Winston Churchill and all that he was able to do, because I mentioned him in my book. She said, did you write today? How's it coming along? What page are you on? Do you need me to look over anything? How does it, can I read this? Do you want to read that off of me? Read that to me to see how it flows. She was my own personal editor. She said, that doesn't sound good. You need to take that out. How about you go back, reword and see what else you could put in there? I think this needs to add a little, you need to be more detailed about that. And so having a person like that in your corner who is constantly not only your number one critic but your biggest supporter, I feel like everybody needs that in their life, and that is what constantly keeps me going. She sees every face of Shanaya Daughtrey. She sees, you're getting one face right now. You're getting Shanaya Daughtrey, interviewee, ready. I'm giving you my person. This is who I am. But at the same time, she sees before the interview. She sees I'm prepping. She sees the preparation. She sees the frustration. She sees just the full inner workings of who her daughter is, because I'm her daughter. And so without her, I wouldn't be a 4.0 student, because she said, okay, she just keeps me on track. She helps me. She's involved in my life because she wants to be, and I allow her to be in that space with me as well. So I think that's important, and that speaks volume to our relationship as mother and daughter. Of course we butt heads, but I wouldn't trade her for anything in this world. I don't know what I would do if I lost her. I say that all the time. I'll be like,
Yeah.
take me with you. Open the key, like throw me in there with you, because I don't know what to do. Throw me in the casket with you, because we going somewhere together. And
Yeah.
so she's if you want to talk about force in addition to God, our mighty Savior, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, my mom, the woman who can do anything and everything, she's produced this. Okay, so I'm just eternally grateful for her constant and consistent love, support, and criticism.
Thank you for sharing that. I wanted everyone that's watching you today to hear that part of you. And also, I wanted it to be encouraging and inspiring to any other parents that are out there who are raising phenomenal young people to just get an opportunity to see what that hard work does and what it produces. And no matter what, just hang in there. So I really wanted you to do that and pay homage to your mom. I've never met her, but I can see her work and who she is through you. So thank you for sharing that. So let's get into your book. This
Uh-oh.
beautiful, beautiful book. You see, it's all tabbed up.
Yeah,
I'm
I
ready for
see
you.
ya. I hope you're taking notes in it. There's
Yes,
places for you to write in it, so I
yes, it
hope I hope
is.
so.
I love that. And I have already made a list of young people that I am going to put and send it to
Wow.
them. So I appreciate this. So let's get started. So I wanted to highlight some things in your book. So we're gonna talk about chapter 1 where you says we are more than Snapchat and selfies. Because we already know when we're out and about, especially adults, we see young
Yep.
people with their phone up and they
Mm,
taking photos, posing or whatever.
yep.
But you are coming from a different angle in this. So can you tell me more about the milestone that you've created since the school shootings? Because in your
Well,
book, you talk a lot about that. So go ahead,
um,
sweetheart.
well, Generation Z, the young people of this generation, we are very adamant and unapologetic in what we say, whether that be on social media, whether that's an opportunity when we get a little shine on like ABC little news reel or something. We take advantage of those opportunities because we know the volume and we know that reaction that it can make, a catalyst for something bigger than ourselves. And so what I can say about I'm just one of the many voices of our generation. I'm not speaking for the collective, but I'm a voice of the many. One of the many voices of the many. And what I could say is that we utilize the tools and resources that we have at our fingertips. A key example that happened occurred during the 2020 election, former President Donald Trump and President Joe Biden. And we literally flooded TikTok saying, buy these tickets. We were buying all these tickets. And guess what? He had a rally and nobody showed up. That is the power of social media. That is the power of the creativity of this generation. And we're just unapologetic. We were not sorry for it because we knew what we were doing. I bought like 10 tickets. I'm not gonna lie to you. I bought like 10 tickets. I went to TikTok. I bought 10 tickets because why not? Why not be a part of that? It was for the greater good. It's not just for it was for the greater good of this democracy. Literally, it was for the greater good of this democracy. That was just one of the many instances that Gen Z showed up and showed out, and we utilized the resources that we have at our disposal. And we need to. Social media, it has its pros and its cons, but one thing it can do is get a message out to the masses. And so, uh, going back to the direct question about what we've done since school shootings, we've been speaking out. We've been using our platforms. I've created a podcast. Well, many people have created podcasts. Many people have grown their TikTok following, their Twitter following, their Instagram following because they want to be heard. You don't have to get on MSNBC, CNN, ABC to tell your story. We have all these tools for your story to be heard. And sometimes even for me, I have to remember that. I don't have to. I love Don Lemon. If you're listening, if this ever gets out and Don Lemon comes across it, I want to be on your show still. But we don't need to be on a platform like that to get a message across and
Right.
for We don't need those kind of platforms. It's great if we ever have an opportunity. It's a blessing, but at the same time, we've come to a point where we can inculcate this change from literally our own rooms, from where we are currently. And I think that speaks not only volume, but that really speaks to the character of the time that we're living in. And it's a beautiful thing to be a part of a generation of creators, content creators, and just creators in general. And so ever since school shootings, it's been nonstop. Like, no, we're speaking out against this. No, that's unjust, that's unfair, that's not right. We're going to march, we're going to protest, we're going to speak out and be unapologetically bold when we're speaking. And you can't, you either love it, or you hate it, but you can't say they didn't do anything.
Right. Good. So I'm going to read a quote from this first chapter, and then I want you to expound on it. And it says, "The time of just wallowing in shadows and complaining about what should be done is over. It is time now that we get up and actually do something." So I think you just talked a little bit about that, but you can elaborate more on that for me.
Yeah, like I said, there's really no excuses. Like, we see so much George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, the recent shootings and killings of Black men that are still going on, in this perpetual racism, this institutionalized racism, and just blatant hate and disregard for Black lives. It's an ever-going cyclic pattern of just why is this happening? Unjustness. Like, even under the law, sometimes we can't even get justice. And I'm glad the verdict that happened he was found guilty, because I feel like if it wasn't for the video and that young woman recording, she was getting yelled at, she was getting berated, she was stop recording, 8 minutes and 46 seconds. The world saw what needed to be seen, and without that video, that verdict probably would have gone the other way. Like, we've seen things happen on less. And so there's no excuse for why you shouldn't want to speak out, because everything that I've talked about, we see it day in and day out. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We see these injustices happen all over the country to people who look like me, to people who look like you, and probably your little brother or your sister. And you walk out over your threshold in your home and you're thinking, what can happen? Will I be able to come home today or tonight? With my little brother, can he walk around with his hood on without getting castrated or ostracized or alienated because of his skin color and how he looks? And so, wallowing in the shadows, asking, what can be done? What can I do? Make a video, make a TikTok. These platforms that we have, and even this platform right now, it could turn into something bigger, because it's never about us. It's never about you, that one person. It's always going to be about the collective. It's always going to be about what you can do to impact the person sitting next to you, to the right of you, or the person sitting to the left or to the left of you. It's never just about one individual. It's about the collective of people who share that same suffering, who are going through the same thing that you're going through. And so, wallowing in the shadows, not doing anything, scared to be heard, there's no excuse, because there's too many tools, there's too many resources, there's too many people who know the same people that you know, who probably know bigger people than you, who can help you make a difference in your community and get the word out about what's going on. So ultimately and essentially, it comes down to individual choices that we make. It comes down to the active decisions. What are we actively doing to try and make a positive difference in our community or in our country as a whole? So you really have to just think about things like that nowadays. This world is changing. There's always something that's going on. And at least I know personally, and the people that have run in my circle, I can say that I tried to make a difference. I tried to speak out. And so that's really what it comes down to. No more wallowing in the shadows.
Well, I just want to say, you are not trying, you are doing it. Okay, so you can take try out of that. You are doing. So you've gone down the path where I want to go next. So, what differences would you like to see in your community? What community are you from?
Well, I'm from Lakewood, California, but I'm currently in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I love my Tuscaloosa family. I love the people that I've met here from all different walks of life from Mobile, Alabama, from Birmingham, Montgomery, from Fredericksburg, Virginia. Um, but ultimately, as a whole, I want to see more people actively engage in the political process. Voting, 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 voting. I'm a voting rights activist. I say that very proudly. It's a badge of honor. We have to remember voting affects our everyday lives. It affects us decades from now, a decade from now. The choices that we make today when we go to the ballot box or when we don't go to the ballot box, it affects us day in and day out. And I really want to emphasize the importance of local elections. I want because we can't just focus on what happens every 4 years and who goes in that Oval Office and we make that we change. Okay, thank you and thank you for serving your 4 or 8 years. We just can't think about that person who's going through those doors in the White House. We have to think about who we're putting in our seats in our local elections, our state representatives. A perfect example. That's why voting matters. A perfect example will be what happened in Texas. A massive power outage occurred in Texas during one of the coldest winters in that area during that time. And the Republicans that were elected by the people in that state, they they fought against regulations for power companies. And we see how that turned out. So it matters about who you put in those offices in your state and your state houses, your state government, your local representatives who literally represent you in your state and your family. People froze to death. Ted Cruz, he left his own state. So that just goes to show the type of people that you're choosing to put in office, and they don't really care about you. And then you're looking around saying, "What's going on?" I mean, look who you put in office to represent you.
And that's what needs to happen in our local areas. That's a very good point. And so, you know, galvanizing and pulling together young people as yourself. I see that happening in high school before they become the age of voting and
Yep.
start having those conversations. And then that basically takes us to your next chapter that I want to highlight, and that's Civics 101.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And so, you have just hit on a lot of great points. And so, one of the things that I want to point out in here, you pose a question, and like you said, that there are parts in this book after they read the chapter that they can write. You ask them questions. So, one of the questions you ask for them to think about and also write an answer is: are you becoming so politically correct that we are diminishing our right of freedom of speech? What prompted you to have young people or anyone that read this book ponder on?
Well, I touched on a lot about social media. I literally said there are pros and cons to social media. Social media platforms like Twitter, Instagram have been around for a while, and I included an example of Kevin Hart and what he's a comedian. He is a comedian, and so he made some comments that the LGBTQIA plus community really did not like. He was berated for it. He was criticized for it, and ultimately, he stepped down from hosting. I believe, the Oscars because he said, I don't want to misquote him, but in a sense, he said, I don't want this moment to take away from the bigger moment of hosting the Oscars. He didn't want that to be the main priority of what people are focusing on instead of focusing on the highlights of the night. And I just felt he apologized. He's a comedian, so it's not, I don't want to say what do you expect, but it's like it wasn't intentionally to hurt anybody, and he apologized if he did offend anybody. And my point in saying that is, have we got to a point in our society in our country or society as a whole, to where even if we apologize, it's not enough. That was said years ago, and they dug all that information up and said, we don't want him hosting the Oscars. Look what he said about the LGBTQIA plus community. And I want to be abrasive in my speech because I have many friends a part of the LGBTQIA plus community. And so I'm mindful of what I say, but at the same time, he apologized genuinely, wholeheartedly, and sincerely. And it still wasn't enough. So does it come, like, are we to a point to where I say something back in 2016, I'm running for political office in Alabama or California, and they pull that up? Is that going to be used against me during my campaign run because of something I said when I was 15 years old? So you really have to think about things in a broader perspective, because everything can come back to haunt you. So I specifically put that question as a writing pose in my book, because what do you think? What do you think about what's going on? Do you think we're living in a time where we're overly sensitive, where we're overly critical, where something that was said 4 years ago can come back and haunt you, even if you apologize, even if you said I wasn't knowledgeable on the subject, I am 5 years older now? Like, when is it enough?
Yeah.
So that's why I pointed that out. That's why I specifically put that Kevin Hart situation in there. And even more recently, I believe her name is Alexis McCammon. She was the youngest. She was the youngest, and I believe the first Black editor for Teen Vogue, who was put in that position. And ultimately, she was stepped down for something she said on social media years ago. And people said, I don't want to work with her. I don't want to work with her. And she stepped down. She stepped down. The first Black and the youngest editor at Teen Vogue, and she was not forced to step down, but her hands were tied. She said, "I'm gonna step down.
Right.
I'm step down," because something she said years ago as a teenager on social media, and it's that deep now. I literally, on my Twitter, I have to watch what I say. I want to say something funny all the time, but I can't say what I want to say all the time in the way I want to say it without thinking about, okay, I do want to run for office. Is that going to come back and haunt me? So there's just so many. I can bookmark it, I could like it or anything, but I can't say like, oh, without, dang, okay, that's backlash.
Right.
A lot to think about.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about, and we definitely, that would be so let's move on. And so I want to read this, and then I'll let you expound on that. I love this. This is one of the things I love in your book. Behind every great movement in history, there was a leader that was venerated because of their courage to go against the norm and aim towards something greater in the name of change for future generations and the people of that time. That's pretty powerful. Can you expound on that?
I don't mean to start with but essentially, we live in a time where we're constantly building upon or just standing on the shoulders of those who came before us, always. And if we don't know our history, if we don't know where we came from, how do we know where we're going? History repeats itself. We know that. And now if history repeats itself, we can look back on what leaders who came before us did, tweak it, figure out, okay, that was a little hole there. Let's tweak it, fix it up. We have so many resources to where we can expound on their ideas, their movements, and just create something bigger and better and accommodate the times that we're living in. And I say that because I'm a digital reporter for WVUA 23. It's a television station on the University of Alabama's campus. And we had an assignment actually for a class, and it got published on that website. But this was a story for a class. And I wrote my story on Dr. Pauli Murray, Reverend Dr. Pauli Murray, excuse me. And I learned about her after watching this documentary, this docuseries that Will Smith did called The Men on Netflix. I don't know if you watched it or heard of it. It was a great docuseries, very informative. And she is one of the many unsung Black female heroines of the 20th century. And I implore anybody who's listening right now to look up Reverend Dr. Pauli Murray and all that she was able to do. And the fact that she has not been awarded the Medal of Freedom posthumously is ridiculous. It's egregious because she ultimately helped and contributed to Brown v. Board of Education, that case, which was argued by Thurgood Marshall. She wrote a paper, and when she was a student at Howard University about to graduate, she wrote a paper arguing the separate but equal doctrine in the Plessy v. Ferguson case, and that was her argument. And what she said in her paper was ultimately used in conjunction with the case that was argued by Thurgood Marshall. People do not know that. People do not know who Reverend Dr. Pauli Murray. Some people do. Like, she's well known, but if you walk up to somebody right now and say, "Who's Reverend Dr. Pauli Murray?" they can't say, "Oh, she's da 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 da," and compared to who's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or who's Malcolm X or who's Rosa Parks. We know all these textbooks. I'm not trying to diminish what they did, but all we've been taught in school is Rosa Parks, Dr. Martin Luther King, maybe Malcolm X, maybe, because he was too militant for the people. He was too militant. But we learn about these textbook faces, and we really don't dig deeper and learn about people who like Dr. Pauli Murray, who was not only a civil rights activist, a lawyer, a women's rights activist, a poet, an author, the first Black deputy attorney for the state of California, and the first African-American woman in the United States to become an Episcopal priest. That word is very hard, but she was the first. She was the first to do a lot of things, and we do not know about her. And so she's ultimately in recent. I don't know if you're going to touch on this, but most recently, she's inspired me. She's given me a whole new fire. All that she was able to do and accomplish, and the fact that she's contributed to much of our civil rights, our women's rights, and ultimately the humanitarian struggle. She's played a part in each one of those facets of the Black struggle, of the human right, of the civil rights struggle, women's rights. And not to know about her and hear about her in a classroom, it sheds light on the dichotomy in our school systems and what's taught and what's learned, and then what's ultimately retained, to be honest with you. And so if you don't, like I said, if you don't know who Reverend Dr. Pauline Murray is, please go look her up. She's given me a whole new fire. She's inspired me. Just reading about her and knowing all that she was able to do and the time that she was living in, and she kind of didn't get her due credit during her time. Like, she was in circles like with presidents, senators, everybody that you could think of, but still her name was able to slip through the cracks. That speaks volume.
And that yes, it does. Very, very much so. And you really touched on a point that is missing in our educational system, and that is the true Black history, and the heroes, people who have contributed to the forwardness, for lack of a better word, of Blacks in America, and those people are left out. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that area, and I can see right now, I believe you're going to be one of those people to make sure that happens. And I'm going to stay in touch with you and make sure that you do, because I'm an educator, so I know what's
Please.
Education.
Yes, education is. So I come from a family of educators. My auntie were principals, teachers, everything else. So I know it's been instilled in me at an early age the importance of education, and literally what people who came before me, leaders who came before me, had to go through just to walk through school doors.
Exactly.
It's a badge. It's an honor. It's an honor not to have to struggle like that to read a book in a classroom with peers of different colors, creeds, and socioeconomic backgrounds.
Yes, definitely. Well, you definitely have answered one of my later questions. So now I know who you are inspired by right now, and that is
Yeah.
Reverend Dr. Paulette Murray. So thanks so much.
Yeah. She's
So,
amazing. She's please go look her up. I'm telling you, you will be dumbfounded in the spot that you're sitting in, or if you're standing in line at a Starbucks. Literally, like, this woman was a multifaceted giant. Literally, I cannot express my gratitude, because I would not be here talking to you as a Black woman at a
mhm.
PWI, a predominantly white institution, without the works of Dr. Pauline Murray, of Reverend Dr. Pauline Murray. So
Okay,
it's that.
okay. So everyone who's watching this right now, encouraged and pushed to go and learn more about Reverend Dr. Pauline Murray. So let's do that. And when you do that, we will be thinking about Miss Shanaya Daughtrey, who encouraged us to do that.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
so our time is getting near. So I do want to read another quote from your book. And it says, "It's not the will of the candidate that kills an election. It's the apathy of the people."
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. I believe during that time, in that section of my book, I talked about my ASB experience when I was running for a student position, or a position in my associated student body. And I lost ultimately. I think I was running for secretary, I believe. And I ended up
Yes.
losing. Yes, I ended up losing, and there was a whole, debacle period that went into that, and I touch more on that too, because my mom always said, if you see an injustice or a wrongdoing has been done to you, speak up, and I spoke up, and I didn't get walked over. That's the
Okay.
thing. If
So don't tell no more,
uh,
because we want everybody to read that, because that's a
period.
very
No, literally,
powerful. That's a very
I'm not gonna
powerful
give the
chapter.
tea away. I'm
Yes.
not
Yeah.
gonna get a tea away. I'm reiterating, and like I've been saying, if you see an injustice done to another person, or an injustice has been done unto you, do not wallow in the shadows and remain silent. Speak up, use your voice, and be unapologetic about it. Because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, if you don't speak up, if you don't say anything, people are gonna go on about their lives and forget. But if you do something and say something, it may leave a nasty aftertaste in their mouth, but they remember you. They will remember you. And
Mhm.
so, to expound on that, what you said, the question that you asked, the will of the people. Um, People, and I touched on this. You have to be willing to engage. You have to be willing to actively engage and be consistent and follow through. I'm not gonna give all the sauce away that happened in my book, but to give it a real world experience.
Yes.
Let's do Hillary Clinton, the 2016 election. Hillary Clinton versus President Donald Trump. Apathy of the people. She was overly qualified for the position. She was experienced. She has been in politics for over 4 decades now. And who was in office? Who got elected? Donald Trump, because the apathy of the people, just the I'm rest assured, the certainty that Hillary Clinton was going to win. And did people flock to the polls? No. Did people come out in droves? No. Did we see what we saw in the 2020 election in states like Georgia and Arizona? Did we see that happen in 2016? No, because the apathy of the people. We were not willing to engage, because even me, I said Hillary Clinton gonna win. Look, Hillary Clinton is who was gonna elect Donald Trump? And guess who came out? His following built the wall. Um, just all this slant, just nastiness, the xenophobic rhetoric, and people who agree and lined up with his ideologies. They came out. They voted for him. They rallied behind him. That
Mhm.
makes sense. Donald Trump has a point. Uh, it's the thoughts in the back of your head, or in the back of a person's head, and then once a person speaks, on the thoughts that you are scared to say, once they say it on a platform like Donald Trump did, that gets people's attentions. You gain their attention, you gain their trust, and ultimately what happened, they voted for him because he was willing to speak on things in a nasty way, in an egregious way, but he was what? I keep using the word. He was unapologetic, and he kept doing it over and over and over again, and it got him into office, and it almost got him reelected in 2020. The turnout was massive, but 70 million people still voted for that man. 70 million people still voted for Donald Trump. Forgive me, my numbers are off, but around 70 million people voted for Donald Trump to get reelected after everything this man has said, done, embarrassed the United States on a national stage, a multiplicity of times, in a variety of ways, but still people wanted him in office because he spoke his mind, and he didn't care. He didn't care that he was hurting people. He didn't care that he was going against the status quo, the traditional way of a politician. He did not care. So when I talk about the will of the people and the apathy that could come with it, you can't be apathetic when an issue at large is at stake, when the livelihoods of people are at stake, when our health care is at stake, when minimum wage is at stake, when we can't even raise the minimum wage above $5 in states like Georgia and Alabama. This is all at stake. Mm-hmm. So when you choose to actively disengage from the political process, and you say, oh, well, that doesn't really concern me, but it's probably going to concern your children. Because the last time I checked, you're not in that top 1% yet with Jeff Bezos, Oprah Winfrey, and every other billionaire and millionaire walking around. So you have to think about that. I don't mean to be abrasive, but that's real talk. Mm-hmm. You really have to think about things like that. Like, you have to think retrospectively, and you have to think about the decisions that you make today. How are those decisions going to impact you 5 years from now, 10 years from now? That's why voting is so important. That's why I made it a point to include Dr. Martin Luther King's "Give Us the Ballot" speech in my book. That's how important it was. People died in the streets. They were hanged in their own neighborhoods because they wanted to vote. If the vote didn't matter, why are so many people, Republicans, in state legislatures like Georgia, trying to restrict the vote? Why are voting locations getting put farther and farther out where Black people in rural areas and communities can't get to them? Why is all this in place? Why is certain legislation getting passed in states like Georgia? Why? If the vote didn't matter, why is all that going on? If the vote didn't matter, why are they doing everything they can in their power to restrict people who look like me, who look like you, who look like some of these people who are listening to me? Why are they doing everything in their power to try to restrict our vote and silence our voices? If the vote didn't matter, if local elections didn't matter, if state elections didn't matter, if the national election didn't matter, you have to think retrospectively. So that's it.
I want to say preach. Okay, we're going to wrap it up, but I want to read this. This is your quote. And you have coined this as your quote. And it says, "The wisest man does not conquer the world. The wisest man defines time," by Shanaya, Daughtrey. So as we wrap this up, tell me how you came up with that.
We all have the same 24 hours. We all live in the same 24 hours. It's what we choose to do within those hours that God has given us, that God has blessed us with, is what we choose to do with them. Because at the end of the day, like I said, we all have the same 24 hours, but how are you going to spend those 24 hours? How are you going to spend your time? Are you going to be productive? Are you going to be lethargic? Are you going to check off things on your list? Like, I understand, I'm tired right now. I'm very tired. But at the end of the day, there's things that I know I have to do. because I know people woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, probably had a jump start on their day, and they probably got 5 things off their checklist done. That's my choice, though. I made an active decision to wake up at a certain time, but things are still going to get done because we still live in that same 24 hours. Because excuses are tools of the incompetent, used to build bridges to nowhere and monuments of nothingness. And those who specialize in them seldom amount to anything. Those are excuses. So that's
Well
for the water.
said, my darling. Well said. Okay, so before we end, do you have a final message that you want to say to everyone that's listening? But before you do that, I want to hold up your book, Generation Z, and I encourage everyone that's listening who have heard this powerful young lady speak today. I encourage you to buy it for yourself. I'm inspired. I've read it, and I'm going to read it again. But I'm also going to purchase copies and give them to young people that are in my family and young people that are in my village. So I encourage you to do the same. Let's continue to support her, and let's help get her message out and the powerfulness behind this force that we are reckoning with right now. And we are pleased to have you join us today. So I want to give you some final words before we end.
Well, thank you so much for this platform and for your kind words. The last thing I will say, I am doing a relaunch of my book on Amazon. I'm doing a PDF version to where you can instantly download the copy onto your phone or devices, and the purchase is going to be available for $2.99, and I'm doing a relaunch. And so the goal is to, just get the word out, get the book out, get the message out. And I did set a goal to be an Amazon bestseller before school starts back up by the end of June, or that same day, actually, on June 5th, when I do the relaunching of my book. So I'll be pubbing that. So support that way, getting the word out, sending it to your family. I'll be sending flyers to Miss Dr. Anthony, to Mr. Grant about the relaunching of my book. And $2.99 is cheaper than a cup of coffee. And so if you can't afford $2.99, then I don't know what to tell you. Like I really don't know what to tell you. But no, I am doing a relaunching of my book, a PDF version instantaneously. You can download it onto your devices and purchase it, $2.99, and I'm really excited about that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been powerful, powerful. I thank you for just being here, taking out the time at school on your Saturday, and we appreciate you, and we are definitely follow you. Make sure you get that information to us so we can get it to Dr. Rosie. And so, Shanaya, Daughtrey, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you, and again, keep doing what you're doing, and we have your back.
Thank you so much, ladies. Ladies, amazing as always. Dr. Anthony, you are phenomenal. And young lady, powerful. You're speaking the language of success. You're speaking the language of somebody that's a leader by doing what you do. And that is you to be commended, number one. Number two, I extend the invitation for you to be a speaker at the Los Angeles Black Business Expo September 18th, as well as the 2022 Exceptional Life Conference. So reach out to me directly. Let's connect the dots and see how we can help you generate more revenue.
Do you have an email that I can? I'm really big about following up. So do you have an email?
No problem. I'll type it in here in the backstage, and you put your information so that you can reach out to me directly. I'll give my phone number and everything. Awesome. We'll connect the dots because you need to be elevated, and people need to know who you are. You are a natural born leader, and that's still, but that is hard work. That's not just it just walk out and happens. But again, we'll put you on some other additional platforms. You had a powerful message, and you clearly understand the power of social media, the power of making a difference and having your voice heard by speaking and not being afraid. Ask for forgiveness, not permission. Even with all the bumps and warts of America, it allows us to get on platforms like this and do what we do and say what we say. and also to be economically empowered by just taking it, baby. And you'll be
Right.
good.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Black power is green power.
Awesome. I'm
Yes.
going to drop. I'm
Shanaya,
going to drop my.
Shanaya,
Okay, I'll put my email and my phone number in the backstage.
and I'll also send it
Awesome.
to her. I'll send it to her as well.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
Dr.
All
Claude
right.
Anderson is up
Have a
next.
great day, sweetheart.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Love you guys. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Great job again.
Just take you right to the stage. I think we're there now.
Coming in.
Okay, yeah, we're in. Yeah, thanks a lot. Okay, you're welcome, sweetheart. Take care.